Welcome back to the channel, everybody. I hope you're all doing well. My name is Melody, and I'm here to continue the journey I started over a year ago. Last time, I revisited the era of Mortal Kombat that got me into the game in the first place, from Deadly Alliance to Mortal Kombat vs. DC Universe. And while they were mostly enjoyable, it was easy to see why the 3D era is considered a mixed bag. However, we're continuing towards what became a bright future for the franchise. And it was a lot of fun to make that video, so I just want to say thank you for supporting it. And it feels so good to be back to make a new video, and it's not like I took an extra long time to make this one or anything, right? Right. At least it's getting made. Before we begin, I would just like to thank you all for the love and support that you have been showing this series. It means the world to me that you've been enjoying this little retrospective adventure. And if you would like to further support this series, all it would take is clicking the like button to help us with YouTube's algorithm, and I would really appreciate it personally. We also do have a membership on our channel, where you can get access to all of these perks and benefits. With all that said, let's just get right back on the road to Mortal Kombat 1. So, when we left off, Midway Games had experienced their first two real flops in the mainline Mortal Kombat games. The first being Mortal Kombat Armageddon, and the second being the aforementioned Mortal Kombat vs. DC Universe. The latter game would end up being the final one produced by Midway, and the studio would close its doors. But a new one would open theirs. Thanks to Warner Bros. Games acquiring the rights to Mortal Kombat, Ed Boon and his team of developers opened NetherRealm Studios to continue the franchise that changed the gaming industry forever. However, NetherRealm Studios took a much-needed hiatus to develop their next game. Rather than a plain sequel, the team rightfully decided to give Mortal Kombat what it needed: a reboot. Going back to basics to appeal to generations both old and new, and the result was Mortal Kombat. No, Mortal Kombat. No. Alright, now we're just getting into the future here. This what? Mortal Kombat 2011. Also known as Mortal Kombat 9, and that's just what I'm going to call it because it's easier. To say this was the step that the series needed is a massive understatement. After releasing on Xbox 360, PlayStation 3, and PC, the reviews were high across the board, with fans and critics letting out a great big and it sold almost 4 million copies, easily making it the best-selling game at the time, breaking the record previously set by Mortal Kombat Deception. Like always, I give a history lesson, and then it's on to my personal experience. And this time, Mortal Kombat 9 was the game for me back in 2011. A lot was coming out in 2011. Dead Space 2, Skyrim, Deus Ex Human Revolution, Skyward Sword, and more. Did I play them all? Yes I did. But Mortal Kombat 9 was the game I simply had to have at that time. I saved up a ton of money, and after previously playing Mortal Kombat vs. DC Universe, little did I know that that was basically my warm-up for MK9. I got it, I beat the story, and as the credits rolled, I was in utter disbelief. The time I had with Mortal Kombat 9 was pure, unfiltered, absolute, relentless perfection. The best way I can surmise Mortal Kombat 9 as both a game and its story is that it takes every single thing that fans loved about the previous Mortal Kombat games, fuses them, and trims all the ugly branches that stood out like sore thumbs. And when it came out, I absolutely loved every second of it. But this was back in 2011, back when I was an edgy teenager who thought Code Red Mountain Dew was the beverage of the gods. So was I a Neanderthal, or does Mortal Kombat 9 manage to hold up after almost 15 years? Wait, 15 years? Ooh, I don't feel that good all of a sudden. In short, yeah, this reboot is 9 types of amazing. You see what I did there? When the game boots up, you get introduced to this. Ouch.
That's beautiful.
Somehow I knew from the moment I saw that uppercut, I was in for something special. And like always, I started with the arcade ladder to learn as I went. And you'll learn pretty quickly that simplified is going to be a common theme with this game. Gone was the 3D camera movement. It's like, God. The franchise was back to simple 2D movement, using the combo system and special moves. Simple, but effective. The combat is easy to pick up, but also has layers to master, just like Deception. And everything just felt so smooth to control. Never once did the controls feel stiff or awkward to handle. And just like the original trilogy, I was able to learn every character on the roster. Speaking of the roster, the number of characters was reduced from 62 in Armageddon to 27. To some, this may seem like a downgrade. Instead, it proved to be for the better, with all 27 characters feeling unique to play, from their combos to their specials. In contrast, Armageddon featured characters that were carbon copies of each other. This results in Mortal Kombat 9 being a prime example of less is more. Like always, I started with Johnny Cage, and back in the day, I practically refused to play as any other character. It was like this version of the character was made for me, because I could not put him down. And how fitting, since Johnny Cage is also the first playable character in the story mode. I won't be breaking down the story, scene by scene, or anything like that, mostly because I don't want this video to be a century long, but I will talk about some spoilers and give my thoughts on how this story goes down. Rather than a complete reboot, Mortal Kombat is both a sequel and a reboot. It takes place right after the rather depressing ending of Armageddon, where all the heroes and villains are just dead from the epic war on the pyramid. The only combatants left are Dark Raiden, who I somehow completely forgot to mention in my 3D era video, and Shao Kahn, who I guess found his way back after being yoinked away by Onaga. Anyway, Shao Kahn is about to kill Raiden and claim his victory when the God of Thunder uses his Ama to send his memories of the entire timeline back to the past, to the beginning of the first tournament. From there, Mortal Kombat 9 essentially retells the story of the first 3 Mortal Kombat games, but with new twists and turns to create an alternate timeline that future sequels would follow. Again, it's simple, but effective. It's not overly complex. It introduces everyone to the world of Mortal Kombat, gives the player a chance to get a feel for all the characters, and delivers an epic storyline that continues to get more and more intense as it progresses. In 2011, no fighting game had a story this cinematic before. Even previous Mortal Kombat games, the best ones were held back by,
"If you could get my key back from the brigands, I could get you the medallion. They usually do not stray far from the beach."
I will return with your key, fisherman, and these brigands will know the fist of Shujinko.
Here, it was like experiencing a 4 to 6 hour long movie. Part of it has to do with the structure of the story. As I stated in my last episode, Mortal Kombat vs. DC Universe does not get enough credit for what it did for the franchise, especially story modes. Mortal Kombat 9 takes how the story was presented there, and, say it with me, simplifies it by making it one long campaign, split into chapters, with each chapter focusing on a different character. It starts with Johnny Cage, then Sonya, then Scorpion, and so on. Not only was this an effective way to essentially teach players how to control multiple characters more seamlessly, but it also provided character development that can only be told from a character's perspective. For example, until we play as him, Scorpion is mostly just a fiery thug working for Quan Chi with a weird obsession with, what is it again?
I demand Sub-Zero! Where is the Lin Kuei? Sub-Zero, I will honor the memory of my fallen. I will have my revenge.
Vengeance will be mine!
However, when you play Scorpion's chapter, you learn how he was Hanzo Asashi of the Shirai Ryu before his family and clan were murdered by Sub-Zero and his clan of Lin Kuei assassins. The rivalry between the yellow and blue ninjas is given so much more development and pathos that tries to start to feel sad for Scorpion. You would think the constant change of protagonist would make it hard to understand and a little convoluted, but the story transitions from character to character rather smoothly, with each character's personal story also affecting the main plot. As for the main plot, the original Mortal Kombat trilogy had very little story to begin with. First game, beat tournament, beat main villain, end. Second game, beat tournament, beat main villain, end. Third game, stop Outworld Invasion, beat main villain, end. And as Mortal Kombat 9 revisits them, it makes each game like an entire third of a story. Personally, it never feels like it's going on for too long, doesn't feel too rushed, or too complicated. Of course, with any ensemble cast like this, there's always going to be some characters that get less development than others. Think Baraka, for example. He is literally the definition of a jobber. He's there. He's just there.
And the same can be said about Reptile.
And I don't recall asking you a goddamn thing. Get back to the archives. Yeah, as many of you probably know by now, I have a bit of an obsession with Reptile, and he probably has less development than Baraka. At least he's the first character we fight in the story. Other characters sadly get the short end of the stick as well, like Shang Tsung for example. This is the villain that most people think of because he is the first villain in the franchise. He's an immortal shapeshifter with almost godlike sorcery at his fingertips. He's capable of ending most warriors, hence why he's the final challenge of the tournament. In Mortal Kombat 9, however...
I am merely perfecting you, princess. As difficult as that might be. I cannot believe Earthrealm has won. You aided their escape.
You allowed them to escape.
They will not get far.
He kinda sucks. Especially when this version came out in 1995.
Your brother's soul is mine. You will be next.
Liu Kang! I can see into your soul. You will die.
On the opposite side of things, NetherRealm Studios gave other characters some much-needed time in the spotlight. Nightwolf really shined in the Outworld Invasion storyline. Kitana was practically the hero of the second tournament, and Raiden was probably the most prominent than ever before, played brilliantly by Richard F. Carr, who is my personal favorite Raiden. Now, I mentioned that for the most part, everything is simple yet effective, and that definitely describes the story mode. However, the time travel aspects allow for some craziness to take place. For example, nobody is safe in this version of the timeline, with heroes and villains dying more than a Game of Thrones cast, and the last few chapters take directions that I am shocked were not more controversial back in 2011. When things happen in Mortal Kombat 9 that I know for a fact if it released today, a certain part of the fan base would be lined up outside NetherRealm Studios with pickaxes and bonfires.
What did she just say?
And it has an ending that sets up more to come, which had me applauding. Little did I know that I'd have to wait another 4 years for the next game, but still, I was in awe. I was jaw-dropped, I was flabbergasted, I was shock-alitied.
That's not even a word and I agree with you!
And in my opinion, Mortal Kombat 9 is worth buying just for the story alone. If you manage to find a copy. I was lucky enough to get a digital key for a Steam version years ago, but sadly this game is delisted everywhere. PC, PlayStation, Xbox. It is impossible to have this game in your library unless you manage to find a physical copy, and even that is hard to find these days.
Holy Jesus!
And what is the cause of all this scarcity? It's all because of this guy.
Freddy Krueger.
Yep. Freddy Krueger was the first time we got a guest character in a Mortal Kombat game, and unfortunately, as fun as he is, because of the rights to Freddy Krueger being dropped, the game was delisted everywhere, which is a damn shame because even outside of the story mode, Mortal Kombat 9 has so much to offer. While things are mostly back to basics, Mortal Kombat 9 does feature what were new additions at the time. For example, the meter, which I totally forgot to mention in my last video and I apologize for that, is expanded upon. Not only can you break combos, but you can enhance special moves, giving them an extra effect, or align them for combo extensions, giving so many more layers to the already great combat. On top of that, when that meter hits the maximum length, you can use
Right in the Kanyigin! God damn it!
This was the big gimmick that NetherRealm tried to push back in 2011, and it could have backfired on them. Sometimes a gimmick can take away from the experience, or simply doesn't add anything, and is quickly forgotten. But that was not the case with the X-Stripe moves, because they would carry over into the next game and continuing to evolve with each subsequent game. Why they stick around? X-ray moves are essentially mini fatalities, allowing you to do a lot of damage really fast in the middle of a match. In other words, it's a super move, seen in many other fighting games but effectively executed with some of the best ultra-violence in this game. Speaking of which, anyone who is offended by Mortal Kombat vs. DC Universe being T for teen, let out a breath of fresh air because that big ol' M rating was back and for good reason.
Watch this.
And the award goes to...
Johnny Cage wins. Fatality.
Even all these years later, some of these fatalities still make my back twitch, while others simply make me cheer for their creativity. I've said it before, the blood and gore is not the main starting point to me, but it is one hell of a bonus because I love the fatalities and the X-ray moves. But apparently, not everyone did, because the insane levels of gore led to the game being banned in China, Australia, and Germany. Another new addition is Tag Team, and it is shocking that it took this long for Mortal Kombat to do this, considering the many powers and weapons that can be paired up with each other. It is cool to pick two Mortal Kombat characters and swap between them. However, in my opinion, it makes the fights last way too long. Not only do you have to deplete both characters' health bars to win, but you have to do it best 2 out of 3, making certain fights feel like a decade. So don't get me wrong, while Tag Team can be fun, I mostly stick to regular matches in the arcade mode, versus mode, and the newest edition, the Challenge Tower. It's a relatively simple concept, a long series of fights and minigames that require you to accomplish certain goals to advance up the tower, unlock new modes, and collect coins. More on that later. This is essentially a much better version of the Conquest mode from Deadly Alliance. Instead of overly long and boring tutorials for characters, this time a challenge could be something as silly as fending off zombies or refusing the gift from Melina.
Fight!
Alrighty then.
In addition to testing your might, sight, and strike, there are traditional fights as well, resulting in a nice variety for everyone to enjoy because there are 300 challenges in total. Did I beat them all? Come on, guys, you know me by now. I'm a Mortal Kombat fangirl. I love Mortal Kombat. I'm the one who grinded my way to the 3D era. Did I beat the Challenge Tower? Fuck no. Look, anybody out there who has the patience to complete the challenge mode, I'll consider you a true Earthrealm champion. Some of those fights are enough to make a person want to perform one of the hotter cuties from Deception. I've never beaten them all, even when I put hours upon hours into the game back in the Xbox 360 era, but I just do not have the patience for it today. But I have seen some of the later challenges, including the final one, and yeah, I think I'm good. However, it was worth going through as much of the Challenge Tower as possible because, as I said, you can collect coins. These coins are also earned in the story mode and going through the arcade, performing fatalities, and so much more. Said coins can be spent in the prodigal mode of the 3D era. That's right, the crypt is back, and holy shinad's balls, this is a damn cool version of it. It's the same basic concept of hovering over graves and spending money, thus unlocking different collectibles. However, instead of just basic graves and coffins, the crypt features a whole lot of different graveyards that would get me demonetized very quickly. From rivers of blood, to bodies hanging from trees, to people being strapped to torture devices. You can spend hours just brutally unaliving poor souls for your own benefit. This way you can get rewards like concept art and sketches. Yay, I grinded my ass through the Challenge Tower just for this. Thankfully, there are fatalities to unlock for characters, as well as skins. However, the skins part is a little bit disappointing. All skins are located in one place within the crypt, the Necropolis. All of them are there to be unlocked rather than making it a mystery to find new characters and costumes like before. All you have to do is beat the arcade ladder once with the character and the costume becomes available in the Necropolis. I have two mindsets about this. There's one that says, hey, I do see this as a way to streamline the grinding process, so you don't have to sit there and gamble with each grade to figure out which one has a costume. But the other says, I always thought the mystery part of the crypt was fun, exploring to see what you get. You ever hear something as useless as eat me? With all that said, I have no issue playing through the arcade ladder. It's as classic as you can get. If Mortal Kombat ever screwed up the arcade, I'd be scared. Pick a character, go up by facing opponents, take on sub-bosses like Goro, sometimes Kintaro, then Shang Tsung, then fight Shao Kahn to prove you are the champion of Mortal Kombat. Shao Kahn, bitch, please. I've dealt with Onaga, I've dealt with Blaze, and I've dealt with Moloch at this point. What could Shao Kahn do to possibly give me a challenge? Damn it. Damn it. Shit. Shit. Bitch. But.
Shao Kahn.
Oh, you skull-faced cocksucker! In case you're wondering if NetherRealm Studios was any better with cheap boss fights, no. Shao Kahn is stupidly cheap, with armor that makes it nearly impossible to break his attacks. You want my advice? Focus on just purely dodging his attacks until there is a clear opening, or wait for him to mock you, cause he does it a lot.
Prepare to die.
Have patience and just wail combos and specials at him, otherwise you'll just be putting up with
Shao Kahn.
I hate you. Anyway, you beat Shao Kahn and you go back to the Necropolis to unlock new costumes for the characters, and they are mostly good. Actually, for the most part, I think these characters still look great with familiar yet fresh designs. I mean, look, some of these are still some of the best.
Bocce balls!
Oh. I see where their priorities are. Not that I blame them. In some cases, I ended up liking the ultimate costumes better than the base ones. For example, I think Human Cyrax might be my favorite version of the character. Jax wearing these bionic sleeves surprisingly works for me. And I think this game has the best version of Stryker yet.
Police brutality coming up. Police brutality.
Remember in the first episode I talked about how I didn't get the hate for Stryker in Mortal Kombat 3?
Striker wins. Flawless victory. Fatality.
Yeah, that's definitely the case here, because why does everybody hate this character? I'm not gonna sit here and try to claim that Stryker is the best character behind Liu Kang and Johnny Cage, but I don't understand this running gag about him being an absolute joke of a fighter. If anything, Stryker was at his absolute best in Mortal Kombat 9, with an appealing redesign, fun moves, and a cheesy but welcome performance from Matt Mercer. I personally found him to be a very enjoyable addition to the roster. In fact, overall, I find that I like the entire roster in this one, even though I have my personal favorites such as Johnny Cage, Jade, my boy Reptile, Missed You Buddy, Sonya, and yes, even Stryker. I think everybody on this roster is good. Nobody feels janky or awkward to control. With enough practice, I was able to grasp everybody's control style, which is more than I could say for the 3D era rosters, where I only like 3 or 4 characters per roster, or in the case of Armageddon, I only like 1. This also continues into the DLC characters. The DLC. The thing that gamers would simply have to just get used to, because every game would leave room on the roster for an extra set of characters to purchase later, because as we all know,
we've got to have money.
I've made my peace with it. As long as the base game is a strong one, I have no problem purchasing new characters in the future. Especially when they're great ones like these. Disregarding the problems he caused, Freddy Krueger himself is damn fun to play. Hinchy got a much-deserved comeback, and Scarlet was there, and Ren was easily at his best at this time. I never got the chance to play as Kratos, yes, that Kratos, since he was a PS3 exclusive, and I only got to play this game on Xbox 360 and PC. He looked really fun, and of all the characters to choose from in the Sony library, He was probably the best for a Mortal Kombat title. Overall, if you're rebooting Mortal Kombat, you need a good roster, and Mortal Kombat 9 knocked it out of the park. It's a good mix of heroes, villains, humans, monsters, and gods all wrapped up in a nice bun with character designs that were back to basics, for the most part.
What the hell am I looking at?
So if it's not clear already, Mortal Kombat 9 is jam-packed with content. Most people were disappointed with Armageddon and MK vs. DC for their lack of extra things to do, and while Mortal Kombat 9 doesn't have any of the silly modes like puzzle combat or motor combat, the amount of things that can be done from the challenge mode to the crypt combined with a still very entertaining story, Mortal Kombat 9 just hits all the right notes as a soft reboot. It's fun, it's brutal, it's gripping, it's Mortal fucking Kombat. And after all these years, it's still a fantastic game to enjoy, out there with the likes of Mortal Kombat 3 for me. And like I said, it was a successful one too, because Mortal Kombat 9 was a massive sellout for NetherRealm Studios, allowing the team to expand beyond just doing Mortal Kombat games. 2 years later, NetherRealm Studios gifted fans with the spiritual successor to Mortal Kombat vs. DC Universe, known as Injustice: Gods Among Us. It was an alternate version of the DC Universe as developed by NetherRealm. It allowed heroes and villains to fight each other in a similar but still different vein as Mortal Kombat. However, we're not here to discuss that franchise. Instead, just know that Injustice took new steps that would transition into the next Mortal Kombat game in 2015, starting a whole new generation of combat. But that is going to be a big stretch of road to cover, so we're going to pull over for now and take a break. I'd like to thank all of our new viewers and subscribers for watching, enjoying, and supporting this long-running series that I started a long time ago in anticipation for Mortal Kombat 1. I know, I'm taking my sweet time with it, but this is something I want to be done right rather than rushed. We're getting there though. If you also enjoyed this video, make sure to hit the like button, subscribe, hit the bell icon to get notified of every bit of content we put onto this channel, and until next time, I bid you all farewell.